गोपीनाथ मरण मोहन जू की जाय। नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपार शतर शत शिमार भक्तिवेदांत नारायण गोसाई महाराज श्री गुरुदेव की जय। नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपार शतर शत शिमार भक्तिवेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपार शतर शत शिमार भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपार शतर शत शिमार भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद शतर शतश्मार भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नितिल प्रविष्ट महाभागवत श्री गोक्षरस बाबाजी महाराज की जय। नितिल प्रविष्ट शुद्ध सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नितिल प्रविष्ट वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबाजी महाराज की जय। श्री रूपनो गौरिया गुरु वार्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल पतदास रघुनाथ शार गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर पार्षद वृंद की जय। नाम अक्षय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट विरत गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंद श्याम कुंद की जय। श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाय की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय राधिकाय प्रियात्मने श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायणति नामिने। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। गुरवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकायै तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तद्भक्ताय नमो नमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुस्तं सर्वभूतहृदयमुनिमानतोऽस्मि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। शृण्वतां स्वकथा कृष्णा पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तना हृदन्तस्थो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सतम्। नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे त्वां नायमं चरणान्तिकम्। भक्त्या विहीना अपराधलक्षय क्षिप्ताष्टकामादितरङ्गमध्ये कृपामयि त्वां शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दम्। भज श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Dandavat pranams Sharma ji, Gargraj ji, Indira Mata ji, Raseshwari Mata ji, Madhavi Didi, Prajumna Prabhu, Sukada Mata ji. This was okay. Yeah, I'm glad you're here today. Also, Prajumna Prabhu. Yes. Oh, cool. Nice to know, Prajumna Prabhu. Dandavat pranams Nari Hari Prabhu and Krishna Prabhu. Haribol. Dandavat pranams, everybody. All right, so where are we? 1 second. Sorry, give me 1 second, guys. Okay. Oh, and Amit Krishna Prabhu. Haribol. So in the previous verses, we went over okay. So the minds of the Vraj maidens were naturally wrapped in Sri Krishna, and after hearing the flute song, which arouses erotic desire, they were completely stupefied by prem and were pulled to their beloved. Unseen by each other, all the gopis ran to him, their earrings swinging because they were moving so swiftly. As soon as they heard Krishna's flute song, those gopis who were milking the cows abandoned what they were doing and started off. Some gopis were heating milk on the stove and simply left it there, resulting in it boiling over. Others were cooking cracked wheat and left it on the fire. All of them rushed toward the sound. Some gopis were serving the evening meal to their families. Some were giving milk to little children. Some were serving their husbands, and some were taking their supper. They all dropped what they were doing and they ran to their beloved Sri Krishna. Some gopis were anointing themselves with kumkuma and chandan. Some were cleansing their bodies with herbal paste, and some were applying mascara. Regardless of their condition, they all dashed off. Some of the gopis were so overwhelmed with all consuming passion that their dresses and ornaments were in disarray as they rushed toward their beloved Sri Krishna. Okay. The husbands, fathers, brothers, and other relatives tried to check the Vrajsundaris, whose hearts had been stolen by Sri Govinda. But because the cowherd maidens were spellbound and had lost their external discrimination, they could not be deterred. Some gopis were stopped by their husbands and other family members and could not get out of their houses. Completely submerged in love for their beloved Sri Krishna, those gopis closed their eyes and meditated on him deeply. And this is what we read yesterday. Let me make it big. Those gopis who were not able to meet with their beloved were subjected to extreme suffering in the intolerable fire of separation, and thus all their remaining inauspiciousness was burned off. Then, attaining the tight embrace of Sri Achyuta in their meditation, they felt a supreme bliss that wiped away all their material piety. Thus, becoming free from all kinds of auspicious and inauspicious bondage, they met with Paramatma Sri Krishna as their paramour and instantly gave up the remaining subtle material attachments. And Indira Mataji, I saw you sent a message to me, and I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet because I was running late this morning. So I don't know if it had to do with today's reading, but sorry if it did. Okay. Shri Parikshit Uvacha Krishnam vidu param kantam natu brahmataya mune guna pravaho paramas tasam tasam guna dhyam katam. Sri Parikshit Maharaj asked, O great sage, the Vrajramanis knew Shri Krishna only as their beloved. They never saw him as the Supreme Spirit. As their hearts were ever attached to Shri Krishna's qualities, how were they able to become detached from the influence of the three modes of material nature? So now we're reading Śrīla Śrīdhara Swamipad's Bhavarta Dipika. So since they never saw Krishna as a supreme spirit, they just saw him as their beloved, how are they able to become detached from the influence of the three modes of material nature? Śrīla Śrīdhara Swamipad's Bhavarta. One may raise the question, since in actuality, husbands, sons, and other family members are spiritual personalities, Brahma, why would one not attain liberation by serving them? The answer is that the gopis were not conscious of the spiritual natures of their husbands, sons, and other family members. So they would not become liberated through their service to them. Then automatically the question arises, how do the gopis become liberated by associating with Sri Krishna, since they did not see him as the Supreme Spirit? This verse starting with Krishnam Vidu presents this doubt. These gopis knew Sri Krishna only as their beloved. Srila Jīva Gosvāmī Pad's Vaishnav Toshani. The name Parikshit is explained in this way. Pari means from every angle, and Ikshate means he knows everyone's mood. So he knows everyone's mood from every angle. Maharaj Parikshit knew Sri Krishna as the Supreme Spirit. That is to say, he knew the power of his mercy and his inconceivable glories. However, there were some sincere devotees present who had withdrawn from the external world, but who still harbored doubts in their hearts. That is to say, they believed in the power of Krishna's mercy and in the inconceivable greatness of bhakti, but they were dubious about Krishna's confidential pastimes. Sri Pariksha expressed their mood in a special way to remove their uncertainty. Now, for the externally oriented Brahmagyanis and Karmis who speculate about the conclusive truths of bhakti, to clear away their skepticism, Sri Parikshit presented this doubt from the point of view of a Brahmagyani. Their doubts can be expressed in this way. Brahmagyanis very rarely attain liberation. How then could the gopis attain liberation through their amorous mood, their kanta bhav, when they did not understand Bhagavan as the Supreme Spirit? In some versions of Srimad Bhagavatam, the verse reads Rajo Uvacha, the king said. Both versions have the same meaning, one who understands everyone's moods. Sri Shukadev, the best of the sages, understood the motive behind Parikshit Maharaj's question. Sorry, one second. Okay. Sri Shukadev, the best of the sages, understood the motive behind Parikshit Maharaj's question and removed the doubts of the sincere devotees while at the same time condemning those averse to bhakti. The explanation he gave for the latter group is well known. The meaning for sincere persons is as follows. Wherever it is said the gopis gave up their residual subtle material body, their guna maya deha, the word guna refers to the three modes of nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. In other words, they gave up their body was under the influence of the material modes. Then the question arises. The contemptible material body is already known to be intrinsically composed of the three modes of nature. So why emphasize the phrase guna maya deha? One might propose that the word guna implies qualities of the minds, like compassion, which progress into a flow of more attributes, and moy, which means plentiful. In that case, gunamoy would mean one who possesses a host of excellent attributes, not one whose body is composed of the three modes of material nature. It should mean one who possesses a host of excellent attributes. Even then, the question arises, how is the gopis' residual subtle material body removed if they only knew Sri Krishna as the ultimate lover and not as the supreme spirit, as Brahma? How are the gopis able to terminate their material attachment when their hearts were attached to Sri Krishna in a material sense? The gopis who performed the Ras Leela with Bhagavan had fully transcendental bodies, untouched by the three modes. The gopis who were locked in their houses did not receive bodies that were beyond the material nature until later on. The subtle material body, the Gunamaya Deha of those gopis who were prevented from going to the Ras Mandal, was replaced by a pure transcendental body when they absorbed themselves in meditation on Sri Krishna. It is to indicate this transformation that the adjective Gunamaya is used here. With regard to giving up the subtle material body, mental virtuous qualities such as being truthful, not criticizing others, are nothing but a product of the material mode of goodness. So they are considered to be equally disdainful. This verse starting with Krishnam Vidu presents this inquiry. The meaning of the verse is as follows. The gopis only knew Krishna as their beloved, their param kantam. Here, parang means only, and kanta means their dearmost lover, who steals the minds of all with his uncountable, astonishing attributes. Natu Brahmataya. They did not know anything about Krishna being the absolute truth. Tasam gunadhyam. The gopis' hearts were devoted to Sri Krishna because of his amazing qualities, which are so powerful that even staunch impersonalists give up their meditation on Brahma and come running to him. Those gopis were so exclusively fixed on Sri Krishna that their loving tendency became one with Krishna's wonderful qualities. Thus, they became endowed with transcendental attributes. This is the meaning. The purport is that when the core of the heart is absorbed in Sri Krishna's supreme beauty and other qualities, then one understands the paltriness of the impersonal Brahma. The hearts of the Vraj-sundaris were endlessly submerged in Krishna's amazing attributes. So just as the gopis were overwhelmed by Krishna's unlimited qualities, he was similarly intoxicated by theirs. That is, he was subjugated by their prem. The gopis' qualities were connected to Krishna's because all their endeavors, inspired by their one-pointed prem for him, were related to Sri Krishna's transcendental merits. That is why it is said that the gopis were endowed with transcendental qualities. A question may emerge. All the sadhan siddha gopis were not situated in their completely pure spiritual bodies, so they gave up those bodies. But how could they possibly give up transcendental attributes which are permanent? The answer is this. For those who worship Brahma, Sri Krishna manifests his effulgence only, but this was not the case for the gopis who were locked in their houses. Sri Krishna appeared before them in his full form with all his attributes. The worshippers of Brahma are in the mode of goodness, so it is possible for them to be extricated from the current of material modes. In contrast, there is no need to renounce Bhagavan's unlimited, fully transcendental qualities that were transmitted to the gopis. This is the meaning. The qualities that are related to the gopis' eternal forms are intrinsic to those forms, and it is impossible that the eternal body with its inherent qualities will ever be destroyed. Another kind of inquiry arises. The gopis knew Sri Krishna only as their beloved. They did not see him as the all-pervading supreme spirit, Brahma. Ye yata mang prapadyante. I reciprocate with devotees according to the way they worship me. That's in Bhagavad Gita 4:11. This being the case, since the gopis did not know Sri Krishna's all-pervading quality, how could his all-pervasive form manifest in their houses? And is it possible that the gopis would give up the nectar that flows in meeting? They only knew Krishna as being the handsome, expert lover. So how could they possibly give up such transcendental qualities related to their eternal forms? And which way did they meet with Bhagavan? Mune refers to Sri Shukadev Goswami, and Mune refers to Sri Shukadev Goswami and means omniscient. Interesting. It just ends with a question. Okay, Srila Viśvanātha Cakravartī Thakur's Sarata Darshini. Parikshit Maharaj saw in the faces of those listeners who were indifferent to bhakti that they were harboring a doubt in their hearts. Even though Maharaj Parikshit had understood the essence of the subject matter by the mercy of Sri Shukadev, he presented their doubts to Sri Shukadev as if it were his own, in order to remove their skepticism. So kind of him, huh? Thus he spoke this verse, Krishnam Vidu. Hey Mune, O omniscient sage, Shri Krishna is the Supersoul and the Supreme Godhead, but all these gopis knew him as their intimate lover. They did not recognize him as the Supreme Spirit, Brahma. Rather, their mood was, we enjoy dallying with Krishna. How then were they freed from the influence of the three modes? The Shrutis and Smritis declare, only by knowing the Supreme Lord can one be liberated. There is no other way. That's from Shvetashvatar Upanishad 3.8. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.24 confirms this. Swatmanam atmataya vikshate. Sorry. One who knows or sees you as the super soul of all souls can attain liberation. By this, it is understood that one can achieve emancipation by realizing the super soul. So let's see Shukadev Goswami's response. One second, just checking the comments. Haribo, Yashoda Didi, and Sudevi Didi, and Manjari Didi. Okay, yes, look forward to catching up later. Cool. And Ganga Mataji, Haribo. Okay. Shri Shuka Uvacha, Uktam Purastare Tate, Chadya Siddhing Yata Gata, Dvishan Api Hrishikesham, Kim Uta Dhokshaja Priya. Shri Shukadev Goswami said, O Parikshit, I have already explained this topic to you in the 7th canto. Shishupal attained liberation, the Parampada, the topmost goal, even though he was envious of Hrishikesh Sri Krishna. So what to speak of the gopis, who knew Bhagavan Adhokshaj as their beloved? Even Shishupal attained liberation, even though he is envious of Hrishikesh. So what to speak about gopis who are not envious, they only knew him as their beloved. Śrīdhara Swami Pad's Bhavarta Dipika. This verse answers the question posed in the previous verse. The essence is that the spiritual nature of living entities in general is covered, whereas the divinity of Hrishikesh Sri Krishna, who is the controller of all the senses, is always apparent. It is never covered. Therefore, he cannot be understood by the intelligence. Srila Jīva Goswami Pad's Vaishnav Toshani. Sri Shukadev Goswami understood that Sri Parikshit's question. Sri Shukadev Goswami understood Sri Parikshit's question, but in order to denounce and deprive those averse to bhakti, and at the same time to remove the doubt of the inquisitive devotees, he became a little angry. It was with this intention that he spoke this verse, Uktam Purastat. O Parikshit, I have already told you about this in the 7th canto. Shishupal attains perfection by hating Krishna. Here, perfection is understood to mean attaining the desired goal. That is to say, Shishupal was reinstated in his previous position as a Vaikuntha associate. This is related in Srimad Bhagavatam 7.147. These two associates of Sri Vishnu were always absorbed in enmity towards him. And this deep absorption, they received bodily features like achutas, sarupya mukti, and went back to Sri Hari. They were inimical towards Bhagavan, so their transcendental qualities were hidden, though present within them. When their envy was removed, they attained their previous position as associates to the Lord, endowed with the same transcendental qualities as before. Adhokshad Shri Krishna, who is beyond the limits of sense perception, is the object. He is the Vishai of Prem. And the Gopis are the shelter. They are the ashray of Prem. Shri Krishna and his qualities manifest in ever new forms, and the Gopis experience them in ever new ways through their constantly increasing Prem. This is the understanding. Shri Shukdev said, I have already told you in the 11th verse that the Gopis gave up their bodies that were influenced by the three modes of nature, their guna maya deha. As soon as they attained their true spiritual body with its intrinsic form under the functions of the Sarup Shakti, their material body with its beauty and other virtues was removed at the root. The second meaning of Sri Parikshit's question in verse 12 is answered here. I fulfill one's inner desire corresponding to the mood in which one worships me. That's Gita 11. Accordingly, although all of my qualities are present in me, I only display to the gopis the qualities that are appropriate for them. This is the correct conception. Shri Bhagavan loses track of himself when he is so absorbed in bhakti, and at that time, Lila Shakti, seeing the opportunity to serve, manifests the whole gamut of his qualities. This is how the sadhaks who sincerely worship him in an exclusive mood of madhurya, though they are as yet far away, will attain their desired goal. Here, Dvishan Api, even with enmity, provides an example given through the Kaimutika Nyaya, the logic of how much more, how much less. Shishupal, the king of Chedi, hated Krishna. Even so, he attains perfection and was reinstated as an associate in Vaikuntha. If this is the case, then surely Shri Krishna's treasured sweethearts will attain their perfection. There is nothing more to be said. In other words, Sri Bhagavan's natural propensity is to give himself equally to all. That is why he gives himself in charity to his devotees, and at the same time dispenses the arts of liberation to those who see him as their enemy. This is the meaning. Bhagavan is called Rishikesh, the controller of the senses, and Adhokshaj, who is beyond material sense perception. These two names convey his qualities that manifest his opulence of bestowing liberation, etc. The use of these names in this verse makes it clear that even if one is unaware of Sri Bhagavan's opulent nature, the Lord's particular qualities that relate to the sadhak's mood manifest automatically to help the sadhak attain perfection. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura's Sarartha Darshini. The king of sages, Sri Shukadev Gosvāmī, knew that this was not the king's own question. Even so, he chastised him. O king, it seems that you have asked such a question without any understanding. Sri Shukadev Gosvāmī was actually using the king as a vehicle to reprimand all the others who were averse to bhakti. To reprimand all those who are averse to bhakti. I have already told you in the 7th canto that Shishupal, the king of Chedi, attains perfection through his enmity for Sri Krishna. This shows that one can achieve impersonal liberation, sayujya mukti, even through an unfavorable, envious mood. So what to speak of the gopis attaining Sri Krishna with their favorable mood of amorous love, their kamarupa bhav? Rishikesh. Sorry. Just want to see. Okay. Sorry. Just wanted to see one thing. Hrishikesh, the controller of the senses. Sri Bhagavan is beyond the sense perception of Brahma and other demigods. Nonetheless, when he himself appears in this mortal world out of his unconditional mercy, his inconceivable power enables even the most ignorant persons to perceive him through their senses. Krishna does this to deliver them. For these persons, he is the Lord he is the Lord full of profuse mercy. If that Adhokshad Sri Bhagavan, who is beyond the perception of material senses, displays such mercy for the most fallen souls, how will he reciprocate with his beloved Gopīs, who are the receptacle, they are the ashray of his love? Indeed, he regards them so highly that they become the object, the vishaya of his love. Surely, then, they can attain Sri Krishna by continuously remembering him with love. One may ask why Sri Shukadev Goswami quoted the example of the king of Chedi attaining liberation. He could have mentioned Krishna killing Aghasura in his Vrindavan pastimes, and events that took place closer to the time to the topic under discussion. So, what was his intention in hiding the example of the Mathura pastimes? Sri Shukadev Goswami explains to the king the deeper understanding of the example of Shishupal. O king, Shishupal's heart was absorbed in Sri Krishna in a mood of enmity. It was only his material body given by the curse. It was only his material body given by the curse of the four Kumaras that was destroyed. His spiritual body, as an eternal associate, was always present. The reason for this is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam 7.146. Vishnu Chakra Hatang Haso. Vishnu's disc destroyed all his sins, but not his spiritual body. That is, his body as an eternal associate remains when he gave up his material body. Here, Siddhi means attaining the cherished position as an associate. Srimad Bhagavatam 7.147 states, Shishupal and Vakra were always thinking of Krishna's form in an envious mood. By the influence of this constant meditation, they were liberated from the demonic mood and reinstated as Vishnu's associates in Vaikuntha. Sorry, guys. Verse 14. Let me look at the comments. Oh, interesting. Vamadev's Katha should. Okay. Nrinamni Shreyasarthaya Vyaktir Bhagavato Nripa Avyayasya Prameyasya Nirgunasya Gunatmana. What verse are we reading up to? Just checking really quick. 15. Okay. O king, though Bhagavan Sri Krishna is unlimited, immeasurable, and untouched by the modes of nature because he is their controller, he personally appears out of his own sweet will for the supreme welfare of the living entities. One second, I just want to clear my throat. Okay. Śrīla Śrīdhara Swamipad's Bhavarta Dipika. The question arises, how can the soul be liberated from its material coverings? The answer is found in this verse beginning with Nrinam. Just for the auspiciousness of humanity, Sri Bhagavan, the master of the material modes, manifests in a human-like form. However, it is not proper to say that his body is material. Srila Jīva Goswami Pad's Vaishnav Toshani. This explanation brings to light the power of meditation on Sri Krishna. Jaya and Vijay, the eternal associates of Sri Bhagavan, were cursed by the four Kumaras. Accepting a demoniac mood, they appeared as Shishupal and Dantavakra during Sri Krishna's manifest pastimes and facilitated his relishing the activity of fighting. Similarly, the Gopīs, who abound with love for Krishna, came to perform blissful pastimes with their beloved and assisted him in actualizing those leelas. This verse in this verse Nrinam makes use of the Kaimutika Nyaya, the logic of how much more, how much less. When Sri Bhagavan appears in this world, he bestows auspiciousness upon the living entities in general, giving them the qualification to relish the fruit of the pleasure of his pastimes, his Lilananda. What then will he give to his associates and his sweethearts? This idea is communicated through the use of Kaimutika Nyaya. Sri Shukadev Goswami employed the term Bhagavata to assure us that Bhagavan can indeed bestow this kind of fruit. Since he can destroy billions of universes just by the flick of his eyebrows, it is illogical to say that he manifests in the material realm only to remove the burden of the earth. Hey Rajan, O king, the purport of this address is that a king like you goes here and there for the benefit of the populace, and Sri Bhagavan similarly descends for the welfare of the living entities. Sri Krishna is aprameya, unlimited, and gunatmana, whose unlimited qualities, such as mercy, are usually dormant, but particular qualities become manifest for the specific leelas. These qualities are intrinsic to his nature. Therefore, for the auspiciousness of humanity, he awakens his mercy and other unlimited qualities, just as someone awakens a sleeping person. In this regard, Srila Śrīdhara Swamipad says in his commentary on verses 13 to 14, all the living entities have a spiritual nature which is covered. But as Sri Krishna is the controller of all the senses, his divinity is apparent. It is never covered. This is understood automatically. Such understanding does not require the use of one's intelligence. To remove the doubt of averse persons, Śrīdhara Swamipad gives this meaning. In this verse, Shukadev used avyayasya, inexhaustible, and three other adjectives to indicate Krishna's godhood. Sri Krishna continuously gives himself to his different devotees in different manifestations, but he is never depleted. This proves that he is limitless. How is it possible for him to be inexhaustible? The answer lies in the word aprameya, meaning that he is not limited by time, place, etc. One may then ask how he can be unlimited without boundaries in time and space. The answer is that he is nirgun, beyond the material qualities. What is the evidence that he is nirgun? In response, the phrase gunatmana is employed, meaning that he manages the material modes. Bhagavan appears in this world for the benefit of the living entities by bestowing on them the results of different kinds of practices. To establish that it is not possible that he came here for any other reason, avyayasya and three other adjectives are used. Avyayasya also means that he does not undergo any material transformations, such as birth. The explanation of Śrīdhara Swamipad's commentary is as follows. The question may arise, since Brahma, the Supreme Spirit, has amorous desires that he fulfills, will the living entities not also have desires for such enjoyment? From the angle of consciousness, the living entity and the Supreme Spirit are the same. The only difference lies in their potencies. Therefore, since the living entities have a spiritual nature, it follows that the Gopis' husbands are also spiritual beings. This being the case, why did the cowherd maidens not attain absorption in Brahma when they looked at their husbands with amorous desire? Srila Śrīdhara Swamipad answers this question thus. Yes, it is true that the living entity's nature is spiritual, but it is hidden, being covered by Maya. Brahma himself Okay. Brahma himself, as Hrishikesh, controls the senses of everyone, including Brahma. However, the living entities are dependent on the knowledge acquired from the senses. In this way, their knowledge is under the control of their senses. And as their consciousness is always directed toward external sense objects, their spiritual nature is hidden. Because of being absorbed in material designations, the conditioned souls do not focus on the ever existing spiritual objects, and that is why they do not see their own spirituality or that of others. But as Sri Krishna is Hrishikesh, the controller of everyone's senses, his spiritual nature is automatically manifest. That is to say, Krishna's spiritual nature is self evident, it is not covered. This is the final conclusion. One will achieve the absolute reality according to the desire or mood in which one becomes absorbed when approaching the Supreme Spirit. This is the essential meaning. The question arises, how can an embodied soul be uncovered Brahma? According to Śrīdhara Swāmīpāda, the answer is this. The word body means that Krishna seems to have a body like the husbands of the Gopīs. The conclusion of this subject is expressed through the phrase Bhagavato Eva. Aprameya and other adjectives describe Bhagavan's distinctive characteristics of being inexhaustible, unlimited, etc., which are automatically understood in the term Bhagavan, as these are intrinsic to him. Evam Rupa, Sri Krishna's pure spiritual form is not like the appearance. Sri Krishna's pure spiritual form is not like appearance of the embodied being. It should be the appearance, right? So the bodies of the gopis' husbands or ordinary persons cannot possibly be equated with the Lord's. Right. Krishna's appearance is not like the appearance of the embodied being. So the bodies of the gopis' husbands or ordinary persons cannot possibly be equated with the Lord's. Okay, obviously. How then can anyone designate him as an embodied soul when there is no similarity? How can we say he possesses a body when his form, along with his internal potency and all his variegatedness, is actually the supreme absolute truth? The scriptures that learned scholars have studied and realized present evidence proving that the Lord's body is eternal and fully spiritual. Furthermore, in Srimad Bhagavatam 393, Lord Brahma says, O Supreme Person, the visible form that you manifest is constituted of and is non-different from spiritual bliss, nothing else. Your spiritual effulgence, which is not covered and which is full of bliss, is beyond time and place. It is the partial manifestation of and is non-different from your non-dual form. You, O Supreme Soul, are the original worshipful Lord, one without a second. You are the creator of the universe, yet you are separate from it. And you are the cause of the living entities and the senses. I take shelter of this unparalleled form. Okay, now we come to Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Thakur's Sarartha Darshini. Sri Bhagavan comes to this realm to bestow auspiciousness on humanity. Therefore, if one has any kind of connection with him, he grants him the goal he desires. This verse, Nirnam, confirms that. By the power of the Lord's mercy alone, one can attain him, even if one has not performed any kind of spiritual practices. That is to say, Sri Bhagavan manifests only for the benefits of human society. Auspiciousness is understood to mean the highest benefit in the form of bhakti. He manifests to some to give impersonal liberation, sayujya. For some, he comes to give salokya, equal facility to live on the same planet with him. And to some others, he bestows the fruit of prem bhakti. The purpose of his appearance is not just to remove the burden of the earth caused by the demons. He also comes to bestow to the devotees the fruit of their practices. It is not that he comes only to kill Kamsa and other rogues, because just by a flick of his eyebrows he can destroy the demons in millions of universes. He is inexhaustible, avyayasya. The demon's atrocities cannot harm him in any way, and by continuously manifesting himself in many kinds of forms, he gives himself to many types of devotees. This does not deplete him, because being unfathomable, aprameya, he is beyond logic and measure. Consequently, no one can describe his reality, because he is beyond the material modes. He is nirgun. He is gunatma, meaning that his qualities like opulence are intrinsic to him. His inherent qualities are naturally auspicious, and therefore he is the ocean of transcendental blissful qualities. Is there anyone capable of possibly understanding his uncountable glorious characteristics? Kamam krodam bhayam sneham aikyam sohridameva cha nityam haro vidadhatto yanti tanmayatang hite. Therefore, one who constantly thinks of Sri Hari in a mood of lust, anger, fear, affection, oneness, or friendship will become completely absorbed in it and will become completely absorbed in him, and due to this absorption will eventually attain him. Srila Śrīdhara Swamipad's Bhavartha Dipika. If anyone has even a tiny bit of attachment in any way for Sri Bhagavan, this attachment will be the cause of one's liberation. This is the meaning of this verse, Kamam, Aikya, relationship, Sohrida, bhakti. Srila Jiva Gosvami Pad's Vaishnav Toshani. Okay, sorry. This method is applicable for all times, not just at the time of Krishna's personal presence. That is, when Krishna performs his manifest pastimes, everyone, devotees and non-devotees alike, get his direct darshan, and they receive the appropriate fruits. But when Krishna Lila is not manifest, one can still attain him by becoming absorbed in him. This process is explained in this verse beginning with kamam. This kama is of two types. One is full of selfless love, prem mayakam, as seen in the Gopīs, and the other is the desire for amorous self-satisfaction, sampog icha mayakam, as exemplified by Kubja of Mathura. One may become absorbed in Krishna through anger and envy, as Shishupal did, fear as exhibited by Kamsa, familial affection that the Yadavs, Pandavs, and Vrajavasis displayed, oneness leading to liberation as in the cases of the self-satisfied sages, and friendship as seen in Kṛṣṇa and Kaushika. Among these, fear and envy are unfavorable moods and are thus not accepted, because a person with such a mood always sees Bhagavan as dangerous, although he is actually the embodiment of all auspicious attributes. Some who fear him hide their feelings and hate him internally, and some who envy him display their hatred outwardly. But the astonishing thing is that Bhagavan bestows auspiciousness upon such impudent persons as well. Therefore, who could be so fallen as to maintain fear and antagonism towards Bhagavan? On the contrary, everyone should feel friendship and affection for him. This is the purport. This is the reason why Narad, the sage of the demigods, advised in Srimad Bhagavatam 7.132. Everyone's supreme duty is to somehow engage his mind in Sri Krishna. Here we should understand that the appropriate way to absorb the mind. Here we should understand the appropriate way to absorb the mind. In this regard, Narad said in Srimad Bhagavatam 7.127, a person meditating on Sri Krishna with an inimical mood will attain a more intense absorption in the Lord than one engrossed in him in a mood of devotion. What? This is my firm opinion. That's so interesting. I remember reading that. Yeah. Let me reread that. A person meditating on Sri Krishna with an inimical mood will attain a more intense absorption in the Lord than one engrossed in him in a mood of devotion. This is my firm opinion. Loving devotees disdain animosity towards Sri Krishna. and yet scholars learned in the scriptures have challenged the norms of the sublime path of bhakti yoga and have stressed the power of animosity to produce very intense absorption. That is why it said, even through enmity. Still, the scholars agree that one should accept the mood of the favorable. One should accept one of the favorable moods, such as affection or friendship. The word "even" indicates that the mood of hatred is contemptible and unacceptable. Unity, Aikya, is not acceptable because in oneness with Sri Krishna, there is no manifestation of his personal attributes. In this verse, Eva, indeed, implies that one can achieve success through any one of the moods, such as lust. It should be understood that the Lord definitely, he definitely bestows the desired goal to one completely absorbed in a plenitude of lust, or in any of the other moods. The Lord bestows the person's desired goal. Tan mayata. Any of these moods should manifest in fullness, with Sri Krishna being the sole object of absorption. However, Sri Bhagavan has said in Srimad Bhagavatam 11:14-21, I am very dear to my devotees. Indeed, I am their heart and soul. I am known only through bhakti performed with faith. In Padma Purana, Uttarakhanda, it is stated, yogis have audience of Janardhan by the power of their bhakti, but one cannot have his darshan through anger and envy if he has no bhakti. From this, one can understand that through envy and hatred, it is not possible to attain the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita 7:25, the Lord says, Naham prakasha sarvasya yoga maya samavrita. Not to everyone can see me, because I am covered by yoga maya. In these statements, Bhagavan makes it clear that one who is envious of him will not have darshan of his genuine form. He will see only a covered form, but by the influence of Bhagavan's mercy, a vision of his true form will later manifest in the heart. Therefore, here anger and fear are acceptable in sadhan. Thus, what to speak of those who are Krishna's beloveds, adhokshaj priya? The logic Kaumutika Naya demonstrates that the gopis' calm is superior due to their being very intimate with him. The conclusion is that it is one's duty to follow the Rajagopi's mood of amorous desire for Krishna. In this verse, cha can be read as va, and the meaning is the same. Okay, we're nearly finished. We're just reading this Srila Viśvanātha Cakravartī Thakur's Sarata Darshini, and then we're completing it. It's only one paragraph. Sri Shukadev's intent in speaking this verse starting with Kaman is this. O Parikshit, accept this conclusion, which is generally applicable. The gopis attained Sri Krishna through amorous love, Kamsa through fear, Shishupal through envy, and the Yadavas through family relationship, the Pandavas through friendship and affection, Sri Nanda through parental love, Sri Narad through bhakti. Self-satisfied sages achieved absorption by cultivating a mood of oneness with Sri Krishna. Nowadays also, many persons will eventually attain him by entering deep absorption, tan mayata, in him, through lust, anger, or any of the other moods. This establishes that Bhagavan's pastimes go on continuously. Here, tan mayata is understood to mean having attachment or intense devotion. Just as lusty men always meditate on women, the gopis have a similar deep attachment for Sri Krishna through love-filled amorous desire. Anger and fear are almost the same. By totally absorbing in such a mood, one attains oneness, sayujya, with Bhagavan. All right, so that's our reading for today. Tomorrow we will start with this verse. O King, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the Lord of all the masters of mystic powers, is not subject to birth and death. By having a relationship with him, all the moving and non-moving living entities of the world can attain liberation from the three modes of nature. Thus, it is not proper for you to be even slightly astonished by that Supreme Lord. And then we'll continue. Now listen to what happened on the other hand. Seeing those Vrajsundaris in front of him, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the crown jewel of expert speakers, bewildered them with his witty, charming words. Well, tomorrow, juicy. All right. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Really shukra did I didn't. That's funny. He asked it specifically. Don't chant in an angry mood. Jai Shishi Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shishi Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashata Rashata Shishmar Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shri Gurudev ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashata Rashata Shishmar Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashata Rashata Shishmar Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashata Rashata Shishmar Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj ki Jai. Nitya Parishtam Vishnupad Ashata Rashata Shishmar Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada ki Jai. Sorry. Nitya Parishtam Vishnupad Ashata Rashata Shishmar Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitya Parishtam Maha Bhagavat Srila Gokishwaras Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Nitya Parishtam Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākura ki Jai. Nitya Parishtam Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Shara Gosai Prabhu ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki Jai. Naam Achay Shri Hari Ras Thakur ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaura Mandal Braja Mandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki Jai. Sarva Abhishta Bharata Giriraj Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund ki Jai. Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Shri Śrīdhara Swāmī Jīva Gosvāmī Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura ki Jai. Shri Sarva Vraja Devi Gan ki Jai. Shri Raseshwari Shri Vrishabhanu Nandini Shrimati Radha Thakurani ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavataya Namo Namaha. Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat Pranam, everybody. Yes, very interesting points today. Dandavat Pranam, Cynthia Mataji. Oh, and Prajumna Prabhu, I'll send you something to your WhatsApp. All right, see you all tomorrow. Jai Shri Radhe. Thanks for